Okay, first of all, maybe let me introduce myself. Who am I? Maybe some of you know me, but I don't think so. I think I see many who I assume to be students. I used to be a teacher in this faculty. I used to be teaching a lot of courses in business engineering. For example, informatics in the first year, business informatics, I hope they're still over there, this is the third year, also in economics and in applied economics. But now I'm teaching at Untitled University of Applied Sciences, which is across the streets at college level. And I also used to be a teacher in adult education. So I have a bit of experience with like a lot of different crowds. I used to be a researcher for 10 years. This is really slow. There it is. Here at the economics faculty, but also in Eindhoven University of Technology during my PhD. I started my career actually before that as a programmer, so I have a bit of informatics background as well. And I'm a volunteer. I'm quite active personally in a lot of initiatives. Maybe some of you recognize some things here on slide. A bit of an entrepreneur, some small startups, profit and non-profits. I'm much more. I'm very active. That's also maybe partly the reason why I'm here on top of my job at Untitled. I like to share my knowledge with people. This is maybe not super interesting for you, although it's always nice to get to know each other. But of course, I also have a bit of knowledge about research and about referencing more in particular. My research started in computer science towards economics, and in my postdoc, I was even purely in psychology. I used to travel between the faculties. So I have a bit of experience also in different domains, which is very important. In referencing, you will see that there are habits in your own domain. Maybe let's do this based on this slide. This is a nice way to ask you, who are you? Just give me an idea. Who here is still a bachelor's student? Somebody who is a master's student? Okay, so I assume you're here maybe for your master's thesis, maybe. Who is a PhD students? Okay, and are there postdocs, professors in the room? Okay, so that gives me a good idea. So mainly master students, PhD students, right? For master students, you will be just writing one paper, not a whole PhD. Still referencing is important. And still it might be the case that in your domain, so depending on your supervisor, there are certain habits. For PhD students, it's even more important to get to know the habits of your domain. Also in referencing, there's different habits. Sometimes it's just about the citation style, which we can just select. So so usually it's just selecting another citation style. For example, the most known is the APA standard, American Psychology Association, but maybe in your domain might be very different. For example, if your supervisor would be Mario Van Hoeken, Dirk van der Poel, Geert Poels, Frederik Gailly, that's more computer science kind of economics. Usually we number things, and it's not like with order and year, it's with numbers. You will see it very easy memory. But you have to know which standard to use. Yeah. Who already has experience with writing? Yeah, maybe bachelor thesis. I don't know. Do you read things? Bachelor thesis, like a text, or it's a report with references and all. Yeah. So you all have experience, right, with writing a big paper. That's good. Did you also use a tool for referencing? Who already uses or used a tool before, like AndNotes, maybe you use BibTeX, Reference Manager, Zotero. You have some ideas, but for most of you, like brand new, let's say. Okay, perfect. Maybe also departments, just to have a general idea. Maybe I can refer to some things, but you have to remind me about the departments. They probably changed. We have general economics, I think, or all economics. Is it still number 21? 24. 24? Yeah, the numbers changed. So that's economics. What else do we have? We have business economics, I think, still. It was my group at the time. Nobody from business economics here? Okay, for business. Yeah, business economics, business informatics. That's 24. And then marketing, still a separate group, I think. So it's all over the page. Okay, sure. Just have it come out. Anything else you think I should know? Do you have already you have particular questions you want to be solved or answered today? No, just yeah. Okay, perfect. So I will do 2 times 3 topics. So we start with the basics: how to install software, how to configure it, how to add papers to the program. Yeah, that's just maintaining a collection of things you read. Then the next part is also 3 steps will be when you write a paper, how to cite things and so on. But this is just setup and starting to build a collection of papers. This is what you do during the semesters, during your research, and then the second part will be writing the report. Okay, so there's a lot of tools. I think those are still the 4 most used ones, of which Mendeley is of course one of them. But this changes. Just today I found out Mendeley is getting less and less popular actually, apparently. But I think it's because the new version does not have all the features yet. And I think once the new version is back on track, they will sort of catch up again. Did you get an email about installing the software already? Yes. You got a link about installing the previous version, not the newest one? Yes. Okay, perfect. If you like, you can open your laptop, you can follow along in a few minutes. Everything I will show you will be in that older version because the newest version just misses a lot of features. But on each slide, I will show you when it's not available in the new software. So that you know if you install the new software, you can use it. It does include a lot of features, but not enough in my opinion. So if you decide still to work with the newest version or you've already started, it's okay, but you just see some of these things are not available. Okay, so you create a free account on the website, mendeley.com. You can also pay for it for advanced features, but I think most of you are quite fine with a free account. Don't use the download button on the site, but use that link that I also send you. By the way, these slides will be available. They will be made available, I think, on the library website, if I'm not mistaken. You will get a link to the slides after the session, so you will also have this link again in the slides. Whenever something is not available in the newest version, you will see a red post-it on my slides. That will be clearly mentioned on the slides. Okay, so first of all, what you can do, and you can do it here in class if you like, is to configure the software a bit. So you go to Tools Options, or in Mac, you go to Mendeley Preferences, and then you should see a window that looks a bit like this. My screenshots are all from Apple. I'm sorry for that. I don't have a Windows computer, but it should be quite similar. And there's a tab, Document Details, where you can select which details you want to keep track of for each paper that you read. Maybe it's just fine. I think for most master thesis students, maybe you don't care about that too much. If you're PhD students and will write many papers, I remember in my PhD, I wrote about 20 papers in 6 years. Then it might be worthwhile the effort to configure this towards what you like or what you need. For example, in some fields like computer science, they use the archive ID and they use the citation key. In other fields, I know language is an important thing to mention your citation. If you read a paper in German, for example, in French, that you add that to each reference. But probably the standard selection will be quite fun. And you can do this actually per journal type. So you see here journal article, but you can also click through and do the same for conference articles, newspaper articles, whatever, Wikipedia links, whatever you like. And you can set up what you want to see. Yeah? Not available in the new software. This is not super important, but this one is key. This is what makes Mendeley better than some of the other tools. You can set up Mendeley in such a way that whenever you put a PDF in a certain folder on your hard drive, it automatically detects it, puts it in the software, does an internet search to fill up all the details. It's completely automated. You just put PDFs in a folder, and Mendeley keeps track of what you have read or what you have saved in that folder. But you have to configure this. So you go in the same window to the tab Watched Folders, and you select a folder on your hard drive. In my case, I had a drive, research, and judge, and then reading. And everything I read, I put PDF in. I think there's more than 100 PDFs now in that folder. Every time you read something, Mendeley just automatically plugs it into the software. Doesn't mean that you cannot change it. It's like just the automatic first step, and then you still have all control over every of these records. So that's I really recommend to do. Again, this is only available in older software, so not in the newest one, also not online, but on your own computer. It's a very nice tool to have. Just drop whatever PDF you read in a folder, and you don't care about Mendeley until you start writing your report. And then, if you turn to the main Mendeley desktop view, this is the screen you get. At first sight, it's a bit crowded, but there's like different parts. If we focus on the left, we have a part where you have a document structure. You can organize your papers there in folders. Again, maybe for the master thesis students, you don't want to do whole organization. If you do PhD, it's worthwhile to invest in a good document structure because you will read about many topics maybe and subtopics, and you can have subfolders as well. I even made a document or a folder with all the papers that I wrote myself, and everything I referenced, I put in a separate folder. And one thing to realize is that papers can be in multiple folders. So I put them in this category, which is process of, had to do with my research, but also in papers because I referenced the selected paper, this one here. Maybe it's nice if I show you this live. So for example, I don't know if you can read this, process of process modeling, process of process reading, process of process programming. I did a lot of process research, as you can imagine. Psychology papers, information system papers, and I made nice categories, subcategories. And if I select a random paper, you can see the category is highlighted in like pale blue. It's not so visible also on your screen. In this case, it's unsorted. It's not in the folder yet. Let me select another one, also unsorted. Maybe one with a star probably has. So this one I used in a citation in a paper software systems. Yeah. So you can categorize them. And how do you put a paper in a folder? Well, you just drag it to the folder. So if I want to have this paper also in another folder, I just drag it there. When I release my mouse button, it will be in the two folders at the same time. Yeah. And my tip for PhD students is to make a folder per paper that you write and put everything that you want to cite in your paper also in that folder. So right before you submit your paper, you can go through that folder and check all the citations. Yeah. So I have a folder per paper that I ever wrote. Even my PhD should be somewhere there. 2015 was my PhD. Of course, that's a huge folder with all the papers that I cited in my PhD. Yeah. Why do I do this? Why do I recommend this to PhD students? Is I don't mind about all the details here. They're all auto-filled by Mendeley. I don't check them if they're correct or not until I submit my paper. Okay, so when I'm just reading, I just add PDFs to the folder. I leave it up to Mendeley to categorize them. But once I start writing a paper, before I submit, I check only then I check all the details of the paper so that my citations are correct. Otherwise, you have to check. I don't know how many papers are here, maybe thousands, but if I don't reference them, I don't care about the details, right? Yeah, could be the same for master students. If you just start reading, maybe you don't reference everything you read. So it could be an idea to wait until you submit your master thesis, reserve half a day or a full day just for checking references, and then you can forget about it the whole semester. You just do it at the very end, in the last half of full day. It requires quite some time if you have to check a lot. But the nice thing is you can forget about it during the semester and do this all that. No problem. Yeah, so that would be my tip. Actually, use a folder per paper that you write. In your case, master thesis, yeah, you just put everything in one folder. But verify the details just before submission and not anytime you read something. So you can now start reading along on the train, wherever you like. Just make sure that the PDF gets into that watched folder and Mendeley keeps track of everything you read, right? So it's a bit of setup and then everything runs automatically. I don't even have to open Mendeley. I don't care. I just put PDF in the folder. Question?
A small question. Tip one, it means that the duplicates of the same paper will be placed in different folders.
No. It's still one record in Mendeley, but whichever folder you open, you will see the record there. It's not duplicate, it's not copies. It's not like your file system. In the file system, each file is only in one folder. Here, the same record is in the two folders at the same time. So wherever you change it, it's also changed in the other folder. Yeah? Okay. Also not available in the new software, but a feature that I use quite a lot. Maybe this is not for master students, but for PhD students. Once you start building a large collection, you will see that all these auto-filled details, because what Mendeley does is, whenever you set PDF in the folder, Mendeley takes the PDF, tries to find the title, the author, and the year, and then it does a Google search, Google Scholar search, to find all the missing details, page numbers, journal name, journal volume issue, and so on. But maybe one day the author is abbreviated and the other paper has the full name mentioned and so on. So what you can do in the desktop version is to merge them so that every paper you have of this author will always contain, for example, the full name. And how do you do this? You just drag the wrong name on top of the right name. So just, if you drag, let me take another example. For example, Bayer T to Bayer Thomas, then all the Bayer T's become Bayer Thomas in my whole library. Which is maybe not super important, but me as a detail freak, I like to have all my citations quite untidy. So if you do this also maybe just before submission, you can make sure that it's consistently always the same. By the way, many of the citation styles will abbreviate the first name anyway. So even if it's full or abbreviated in your library, it will be abbreviated on your papers. But spelling mistakes, like especially names with accents, in one record it's without the accent, and the other is with the accent. It's nice if you can merge them together. Also, if you would select other, for example, I can also just click on any of those instead of dragging them. I see only the papers in my whole collection or in the selected folder actually. So if I go to all documents, I see all the papers of this author that I just selected. But of course, if you have different spellings of the authors, I will only find the ones with that spelling. So that's also a reason why you want to merge. For example, I have here Abbott Andrew, once with a single T, once with a double T. I just drag it on top of each other. They say, I rename everything to double T. I just say, okay. And now they're the same. And when I select Abbott Andrew, I find all his papers in my library. Yeah. It's a small thing, but it can save some time later when you start searching. Then in the middle, you see all the records. The records only of the folder you selected on the left. So if you start, you will be in all documents, but you can select any other folder, of course. Also these special ones, favorites, if you favorite paper. And you see all the records. You see a list with author, title, here, whatever detail is available. If I zoom in a bit, then it might be more readable. First column is where you can favorite a paper. Whenever you think this paper is an important one, just click on the star icon in front of it, and it becomes a favorite. You can use it in search and sort, that you see your favorites, that you find them soon. The second one, the green bullets, you can use this to mark whether you already read or not the paper. So if you just put a PDF in the folder, it gets a green bullet. If you open the paper in Mendeley, of course, otherwise you cannot know, then it gets the gray dots. Yeah? So then he sees you already read it. So I can show it probably like this one. If I double click and I go back, or is it the other way around? If I double click, or maybe it's not working anymore. If I double click and I go back, it should be getting gray. Well, it's not even working anymore. You have to do it manually, apparently. So you can indicate if you just click on the dots, this is red or this is not red. It used to be automatic whenever I open it. Then the third column in this version of Mendeley is whether you have a PDF or not. You can also add records without having a PDF. For example, if you want to refer to a website, you don't download the thing in PDF. You just make a record manually, which I will also show. And then there will no PDF be there. So we're going to have a list of some papers without PDF. If you have a PDF, you will see the PDF symbol like here in front. Then, of course, author, title, and so on. In the older Mendeley version, you can sort on any of those columns. So also read, unread, favorite, not favorite, having a document or not. In the newest version, you cannot sort on the first three columns. You can still sort on author, year, title, and so on. Also added, if you know it's a recent paper that I'm looking for, or it was like one of the first ones, you just sort by date added. So before we go to the right part of the screen, how to add papers? Well, one of them is just to put PDF in the folders. The other one would be manually, like I just told. Maybe let's show this. How do you do this manually? You have an add button on the top left. Next to it, you have like this triangle where you can select some options. You can add a file manually, but you can also add the whole entry manually. So this happens, for example, for websites, and you can just get a form where you can select, for example, if this would be a website, web page, and then title, authors, and of course, somewhere I have to add a URL as well. Yeah. You choose whatever you want to skip, you skip, you don't have to fill out all the fields. It's your form. So that's manual adding. Yeah. Whenever you add a paper, manually or automatically, Mendeley will first put it in the category needs review. Yeah, so anything that you never checked explicitly is always in the needs review folder. This means Mendeley tried to find all the details online in Google Scholar. So Mendeley does a Google Scholar search for you based on title and year. I think you only need title and year in the PDF, and then Mendeley will find all the other details. But it's your responsibility to check this in a way. Usually it's okay, but sometimes it's completely wrong. If the title like exists in another journal as well, or so, it could be completely off. It's always, of course, your responsibility. So Mendeley has a system there. As long as you don't confirm, it is showing this message in your paper. Whenever you open it in Mendeley, you will see this message, and then you can search again on Google Scholar. For example, you change the title to the perfect title or whatever, to the correct spelling, you search again. And once you're happy, or you do manual changes, once you're happy, you press details are correct. This means that this yellow part will disappear in Mendeley, but also that your paper is not anymore under the needs review folder. So if you look at the left, I'm not sure if you can see this, there's a needs review. If I select any of these things, I get this yellow box here. Yeah. Once I checked everything and I corrected, I press the details are correct, the yellow thing disappears in the records, and this paper will only be in folders, but not anymore in needs review. Or if it's not in folders, it will always be in all documents or in unsorted. Huh? But for your convenience, maybe let me show you. If I, for example, let's select one with a bit more information. If I delete some information here, there's actually still not a lot. I can do a search again. And you see, he even found the abstract, which was not there. He found the page numbers. So Mendeley found a lot of information online. The DOI, ISBN number, and so on is all found. And now I can say details are correct. If you check these things, of course, or if you're happy with it. So that's what you can do with auto-added topics. One thing again is this is not available in the newest version. So this is the reason why I recommended you to install the older version. All these nice things are not yet, I think, available in the new one. I think the new one. So Mendeley used to be a separate company. It was taken over by Elsevier, one of the biggest publishers in the world. Elsevier decided to redesign the whole software. And for some reason, they started with like a minimal version. and I hope they will still add all these nice features again, but for now they're missing in their latest version. So that's why I say go to the older version, which has all these nice things. Okay, and then the right part of the screen, that you already probably discovered, has all the details of this record that I just selected, including notes if you like. You can add notes there as well. And my tip again, postpone verification. Don't start verifying each paper that you add to that watched folder. Do this only when you submit your thesis or your paper that you write yourself. Okay, you also saw me double clicking on a record. And whenever you have a PDF, you can double click and this opens the paper in Mendeley. I can start now annotating the paper in Mendeley. So I have a toolbar at the top where I can highlight stuff. I can write comments. The nice thing is that this will be synced to any device where you log in on your Mendeley account. So even online, you can go to mendeley.com, log in with your account. That's why you need a free account. It's always synced to your web account. So if you're on the train, even on your phone, it works. You open Mendeley in your browser, you log in, you open the paper. Also, the highlighting, commenting works there, and you will see it. It will be synchronized in your profile, whichever computer. So, for example, for PhD students, if you go to a conference and your laptop dies, just find any other computer. You work in Mendeley in your browser. You can just continue reading, highlighting, whatever. It will be synchronized. Yeah. It's also not super difficult. You can select texts. You have a button notes, a button highlights. Those are the main things you want to do. Copy stuff, notes, adding notes, and adding highlights. On slide, I made a small overview. If you make a note in the text, so it means you use this note button and you click anywhere. For example, I clicked here. I get this note picture. I can write some text in that note, so the note belongs there. And I can also click on the icon in my PDF and it will open the note there as well. So throughout the whole text, you can write notes for yourself, for other people, no matter what. And there's also a box with general notes here for the paper. For example, more like summary kind of stuff. This is a small reminder for me what's in this paper, right? You can also highlight stuff. Course, with different colors if you like. For example, I had a system where definitions were one color, arguments that I think I would need in my paper were another color. You can make give the colors a meaning if you like. You have a few colors to use, and you can highlight what you like. And this is synchronized. All the record details, but also whatever notes you add, whatever highlights you do is synchronized in your profile. So wherever you open Mendeley desktop or browser version with your account, you will see exactly what you put in there. So one of my tips used to be install Mendeley on your tablet or phone, especially for PhD students. I'm not sure master students want to do this. But actually the mobile apps, I think, disappeared. So I don't think they work. Maybe on the tablet still, but not on phones anymore. So on your tablet phone, you can still use Mendeley, but only in your browser, not anymore in a dedicated app. This has nothing to do with the new version of the Mendeley app on computer. This is just the mobile apps disappeared. Even if you still have one installed on your phone, I checked still last week, they don't work anymore. But you can access the web interface. So just go to mendeley.com on any device where you have internet. You have to log in with your account. You see everything you see in Mendeley on that screen. And of course, this means you can work wherever you want. Again, this might be more for PhD students than for master students. I'm not sure if you want to work with masters on a train, on a plane to a holiday. But PhD students, when I travel to a conference, that's nice. I did a lot of work on a plane. Actually, what else can you do on a plane? You have to sit there. So you can read, you can annotate, and it will all be synchronized in your profile. Even if you're offline, it will remember everything until you get online, and then it will synchronize everything. So you don't need access on the plane to internet to do this. Hotel lobbies, trains, you know, the conference live, or I'm not sure if you already discovered conference live. Okay, so that's the whole setup, the whole before you start writing your paper. Any questions so far? Yeah, sure.
when I double click the paper, it doesn't open in Mendeley.
Is it a PDF or is it something
But,
else?
PDF.
It has to be PDF. It's no
No.
PDF.
No, it's not this.
Maybe you have the PDF, but it's not linked here. So you can always, I think, right.
I have the PDF, yeah, I have to.
So you can right click and then
Now, the file is
you can say add file. You can still add that.
And another thing is that
Wait a minute. So whenever you have a record where you have the file is not in Mendeley because you didn't use the watched folders. You click the record and on the right you can still press add file and still attach, or if you have multiple files you want to attach. For example, if you're a researcher and you write your own papers, maybe you already put your paper in Mendeley and you want to attach the files, you just press add file afterwards. So you can still do it.
And the same paper may be used in different research works, and then you want to annotate it carefully in each research work. That when you annotate, highlight, or pay.
There's two options. Either duplicate the records and you have to, because you want different titles or whatever, and you have to duplicate everything. Or you can save, but then you have to change the details every time you write. That's what I did. That's also why I have these folders with my papers. So maybe in this is the conference paper. I needed abbreviations because you have the page limit and you abbreviate all like proceedings of this, like proc BPM 2022. And then 2 weeks later, I write a journal paper, or 2 months later, where I use a lot of the same work. Then I change it again. And of course, if I would open back my Word of the conference, you would see the long versions then. The other option is that you duplicate the records. That is possible. But then you have to, like all the highlights, you have to also do this twice. So that's like the choice you have to make. Yeah. But it's possible. It's never perfect in this case. Any other questions? For the students, the master students, you like this, you just configure watch folders, and for the rest you don't care. You just add PDFs and read a lot. You're already working on a master thesis, people in the room, or is it like for next semester, next year? Who's already working on thesis this semester? Okay, so you already have a lot of papers that you read, I hope. Usually your supervisor comes. You already still have the PDFs in the folder or not? You think you still have them? That's more like some yes, some no. Only look back to those that you think you will cite. Whatever you won't cite in your master thesis, you don't need the PDFs. But whatever you think you might cite, I would recommend you to try to put them in a folder as soon as possible so that you build your collection in Mendeley as soon as possible. Okay, so that was the whole configuration, whole setup. Everything is now in Mendeley. You're building your library with a lot of papers, a lot of PDFs. Yeah, sure.
Collections and groups.
Groups, we will see a bit further, is when you share papers with multiple people. So it's sort of shared folder for Mendeley. While collections is just like a sort of folder. But it's for my third on slide. Okay, now we move ourselves forward a bit. We start writing a paper or a thesis, right? We start using the collection. So one of the things I will mention is how to cite papers. I assume that most of you either use Word for writing your thesis or papers or LaTeX. One of those. If anybody uses another tool, you can tell me. But yeah. Most people use either Microsoft Word or another OpenOffice Word. Also, I have the same features. Although I think the Mendeley plugin only works on the Microsoft Word. Then how to collaborate, maybe with your supervisors, maybe with colleagues, with other researchers. You can, if you work together on one paper, it can be nice to share some stuff in Mendeley as well, that you don't have to send the whole collection to the other side as well. And then finally, some general stuff to end the session. So normally when you install Mendeley, it's already installing the Word plugin by default. If it's still missing, you can always find it under Tools, Install MS Word plugin. If you go to Tools and you don't see Install but Deinstall, it means it's already installed. And whenever you install the Microsoft Word plugin, I started with Word, you will, in Words, you can go to the reference ribbon and you will see the Mendeley buttons there. So it adds that blue section to your Words references ribbon. You still see the Word referencing part as well. This is built in Microsoft's referencing, which is, in my experience, still a bit crappy because you have to do a lot of manual work. So you will stick to the blue square here, I think, when you will write your thesis or papers. Again, the new software, they do have a Word plugin, but it's different. But that's one thing that is already in the new software as well. You see just a few buttons. Let's go over them. You have insert or edit citation. This is in your text. So whenever you make a bold statement and you want to add a reference to that statement, you press insert or edit citation. At the very end of your document, you will insert bibliography. That's the list at the end, but in the text, that's what we call a citation. I think you know this, citation in text, bibliography at the end. If you already have a citation that you want to change, you do not have to go to Mendeley. You can do it in Word and you press the same button on an existing citation and you have the edit feature. In most papers, when you have two works you want to cite in the same spots, you will put them between the same brackets. You don't do brackets. You want to merge them. That's this button. If you will have two separate ones and you want to make one citation out of them, you just press the merge button. And then you also have insert bibliography, like I showed you already, and you have the style. You can select here in which style. So this is APA, but depending, master students, you ask this to your supervisors, which citation style should I use? You can change this at the very end. You can change this already now. When you have your master thesis, 10 minutes before submitting, you can still change it. The whole Word file will be reprocessed with a different style. APA is author, year, between brackets. For example, IEEE for some people will be numbers, just 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Depends on the style. I just press the change the style. The whole document will be reformatted, including the bibliography at the end. There's also rules there about order and format of the bibliography. Yeah. You see, I made my own version of some styles. This is not the standard APA. I did make some changes. You can also do that if you like. I will show you later how to do that. For master students, don't change the existing styles. Before I go to more advanced stuff, let's go to collaboration. At the very bottom of the left folder, the project view, you can create groups. If you have a free account, which is, I assume most or all of you, you can create one group, not more. So you can make a group where you share with your supervisor stuff. If you're a professional researcher and you want to collaborate with multiple people, you have to pay if you want to use the sharing option with multiple groups of people. Yeah. One trick, if it still exists, what I did when I was PhD student, I registered to be a Mendeley, what did they call it, ambassador, I think, and then you get updates on your free account. It was still free, and you get 5 gigabytes of storage, and I also get more groups. So I can still use my advanced account, which is still for free in my case. So when you click the button, you just fill in a name. For example, in this case, it was a conference paper or BPM conference 2012 or 2021. Create group, and then you can start inviting people with their email address. It has to be the email address they use for Mendeley, but you can assume it's their weekend or whatever address, their institutional address. And then it becomes a sort of folder on the left. It's a grouped folder and actually behaves like any of these folders. Whatever I drag into that folder will be shared between everybody who is in this group. So when they open the folder in Mendeley, they will also see your new paper that you added. If you highlight something, it will also be in their PDF highlighted. If you add a comment, it will also be in their PDF. So it will be synchronized. Whatever you do there will be synchronized to the whole group. That's also mentioned here. So just drag records to there. The files will be synchronized as well. The PDF, I mean, attached to the records. Any records information, any highlights, any notes. Yeah. If you use multiple colors in your notes, it will be only one color so you will get a dedicated color per person in the shared version. Yeah, so all your colors become one and all their colors become one per you. Yeah. And in red, very clearly, the free account, you can create only one group. You can be member of many groups. If your supervisor has a professional account, he can invite all students or can invite you to different groups, but you can create only one if you have a free account. And more information about groups, because some people want to take it a bit further, but I'll leave it on slide and link. If you really want to do advanced collaboration in Mendeley, I refer to this website of Mendeley with some more information on some practical things. You could think now that it might be a nice idea to use a PDF of your own paper, your own thesis, and then send it to your supervisor by sharing it in the Mendeley group. And then your supervisor can add notes, and then when you open Mendeley again, you see the notes of the supervisor and you can communicate. I don't think that's a good idea. That does not work. One, you have to have a PDF. It doesn't work with Word files, so you have to always convert your Word file to PDF and then synchronize it and so on. But also the collaboration, in my opinion, does not work so good in Mendeley. So in my experience, I use it only when I write a paper together with other people. We need to have a shared group because otherwise, if they open the paper in Word, they cannot open all the references. But if we share a group, they have access, so if they make changes, even it will be changed. So I only use it for sharing the library, the reference, but not so much for sharing the files and so on. Yeah. For that, Microsoft Word review is actually way better, unless you work with LaTeX, of course. But if you work in Word, you have a review option in Word. I hope you know this. And you also have a ribbon review, it's called, where you can activate actually, the track changes button. When you click on this button, everything I change now will be highlighted. So it can be nice for your supervisors. If you send them one version, you get feedback. That's on the second version, you press track changes. Whatever I change now in my Word, for example, if I delete something, I have to show all markup. Oh, it's not, I didn't press the button. Yes, sorry. If I change something, it will be highlighted. And then you can send it back to your supervisor and he can see what you changed. He doesn't have to read the whole text again. Or the other way around, if your supervisor has comments, he might do this and already work on your text, or maybe just add comments, new comments, and I can be. And that's an easier way to collaborate also with other researchers. If you have co-authors, just send a Word file if you work in Word, and with comments and track changes, that's very nice to collaborate. Okay. Then I think some people might also work in LaTeX. I don't know what to pronounce in English. Who's working in LaTeX for thesis or papers? You don't know. So Mendeley has a bit of LaTeX support, but most of the things you do in LaTeX, of course. One thing is the BibTeX configuration. If you work in LaTeX, you will have a separate file with all your references, which is called a BibTeX file. This file you can forward to your supervisor. You can share it with your supervisor. Who's your supervisor?
And I don't have really a supervisor.
Don't have one yet. Okay. For example, I know that Professor Van Hoeken, he has one master file that he shares with all his PhD students and even master students. You have to work on his file, his BibTeX file, if you want to do a thesis. So you put all your references in the file, and if you use Mendeley, it's just a matter of generating the file out of Mendeley. So Mendeley can export to a BibTeX file and then use that BibTeX in your LaTeX text. And you can configure it also just in the general configuration. For example, the escape characters is a nice thing to have. All special characters like an E with an accent and so has to have a special signature in that file. So make sure that that is selected. And you can set a path and then it will auto update, I think, the documents. So whenever you do some change in Mendeley, you will auto save to the BibTeX file as well. More information on the link. I know it's more exceptional. Most people work in Word, but if you use BibTeX, you will find a lot of information here. It can help you. It's nothing difficult. The difficulty is in BibTeX, not in Mendeley. And then some extra features you might want to use if you do all the auto adding. If you just put PDFs in the folder, you might end up with duplicate records. For example, the PDF was already there, but you added it again under another name. Mendeley did not recognize it. You have two records now of the same paper, each with their own PDF file. You can, if you want to tidy up your library, you can check for duplicates in Mendeley. You can also do it manually by just selecting two records. You will have the same thing as when you go for duplicates. You can select both of them together, press the merge document. Whenever you have more than one document selected, this box will be there. And if you press that, you see your two papers, and you see Mendeley tries to give them out of both records the new master record, but you can check, and you can even put check marks there if you like. And whenever you're ready, you press confirm merge, and both of them are now merged into one record. And then citation styles. I think many of you will not work too much on citation styles, but if you're serious about research and citing, you might come to a level where you want to make where you need more citation styles. For example, if you want to submit to a certain conference, to certain journals, some of them have their own citation style. They have requirements about the order of citations in the bibliography, about the formatting, and so on. But many of the journals, they have a citation style file, which you can download and then plug it into Mendeley so that Mendeley knows how to cite for that journal or conference. Yeah? In order to do that, and you have the standard here, you go to more styles. In Mendeley, you get a list, and you can even, so those are the ones installed on my computer, you can even get more on the internet if you go there. And then if you have your list of styles, you can right click on any style and select the option to edit this style. This will take you out of Mendeley to your web browser, and in the web browser you will be turned into a citation style editor where you can change how citation style looks like. For example, I don't know, if you want to shorten your paper, sometimes you have a page limits. It can be an idea to mess a bit with the style, to do some tricks, delete some spaces here and there, comma without a space after it, or abbreviations that you configure. So it's a bit cheating, but rather you want to cheat in your citations than in your work, right? If you want to shorten it, the citation style, even if it's just spacing between at the very end of your bibliography between the citations, just lower the space a bit, can save you half a page, a full page sometimes. So if you have a page limits, that's when you usually start editing styles. It takes you to browser view, which is it's not included in this session, but it's kind of self-explanatory. You see here all what I call macros, how an author is sorted, how patent is numbered, and so on. And you see everything, and when you click on them, you see the limiters. It's with commas. If you want semicolon, you change it to a semicolon. If you want to have a prefix, for example, any web page, you want URL before URL, you add URL double point, point, and so on. So you can change the style. You always see the example while you change the configuration. You see an example of your new configuration here already. So, for example, if I want to have only the first author abbreviation, not all the author names, you can add it somewhere here, and then the L disappears and the K and so on. So you can do these changes. In my experience, it's usually when you want to shorten stuff. For example, that could also be an option if you want to have like citation style with shortened and with abbreviated names, you can try to mess with the style here to abbreviate it. It can abbreviate, so it can. Sometimes they use a list, but actually you can do this in Mendeley. It's on my slides. Yes, you can also add abbreviations here. And then in the style, you just say it's abbreviated, but here he knows how to. Or you can just say in the style 4 letters and then a point, whatever comes next. But here you can do it like one by one, journal by journal, or whatever. Okay, that's already the end to my presentation. Any questions? Yeah.
Is there any possibility that, for example, if you have imported all the references to an Excel file, the metadata is available in the Excel file, is there any way to import them?
From Excel to Mendeley. I don't know by heart, but let's check. No, I don't think so. Although, wait a minute. We have an import from
Yes, for example, if you
one of these formats. So if you can get it into, for example,
how is it possible, for example, if you're doing a literature review, and it's about, for example, then you have different databases that you're researching, and then maybe you want to do some manipulations in Excel.
you can do this. This requires a bit of advanced Excel. I think I did it once in my career. I had an Excel file, and then you can import, for example, from an EndNote file, which is an XML file. I don't know if you know that. It's a bit like HTML with text. So you can in Excel, with concatenate, which is a function in Excel, you can sort of build the XML. So you add all the text to your fields with functions, and then you export that to a text file, which you rename to, but it's a lot of work. But it's possible. I did it once and I think it worked in the end. Before Mendeley started, I had a collection in Excel, and then when I started Mendeley, that's how I think I imported my first collection.
Is it safe then? For example, if, I have an Excel file that contains lots of information.
Yeah, sure. You do one record, you check it, and then in Excel you could just drag all the formulas way down. But it's yeah, I think you might reserve a whole afternoon for that if you want to do this. But if you get it in one of these formats in any way, like maybe it's easier to go from Excel to, I don't know, if you Google it, Excel to BibTeX, Excel to RS.
Also some
Maybe there's some tools.
available software tools that covers, for example, Excel tools.
Once you get in one of these formats, you just go in Mendeley and file imports.
I think to be Excel to be available.
Yeah, try it.
I really think.
Yeah, should work, and otherwise you just delete it again.
The question is that the files that are shared with another person, if that person has the same file on himself, for example, there are two separate files.
No. Whenever it's in the shared folder, whatever you change will also be changed in the other side with the other person. But the other way around, if I drag one of these records, to one of my folders, I now have a copy that's mine. But as long as I'm working on this folder, it will be shared between everybody's in the folder. But you can, if, for example, if it's my folder, I share it with you, so I put it there and you're also here. You go on your laptop to this folder and drag it out, then you have a copy of your own. So you can also use it to share copies, let's say. Yeah, but as long as you're working in the shared folder, whatever you change is shared between everybody. Okay. More questions? Yeah.
For instance, when you're like on your Mac and you click on something, you have like this preview. Like, like a preview, you stick it.
No, you have to double click and open. But it opens in that layer. But there's no preview. I'm not sure. I don't think so.
if you have a PDF document and you, yeah, I read some stuff and then you put it in memory with it, and then you get to.
No, I don't think so. Only what you highlight. Yeah. Did you get tested out? Maybe the use version, this old version. So it is there, but I don't think so. It wasn't in my mind. You can still open the PDF in that folder, right? If you open the PDF, not in Mendeley, but separately, the highlights will still be there. It will not change that, right? But yeah, it's a choice you have to make. That's also maybe why we have this session quite soon. The sooner the better in your process. You select the tool and then stick to that tool. It's not so easy to switch tools, like from Excel to Mendeley, from your browser to Mendeley. So also for the thesis students, if you consider working with Mendeley, start using it from now on consistently and try to put everything you already done as soon as possible in that collection as well, that you don't have duplicates and rework afterwards.
It's
Yeah.
containing.
I just
So if you did it before, you can.
any highlights or in the PDF already, or also in Mendeley highlights? That's nice. More questions? Was it clear? Do you want to use Mendeley now, or like not a fan? I don't know. For thesis students, I used to be a thesis student myself, of course, once. I used to be a PhD student, but I also used to be a thesis supervisor. Supervisors always like if you cite a lot of papers, the more the better. It doesn't mean that you have to read all of them from start to end. You don't have to. I mean, it depends on the research. If you do literature review, you have to have it. If it's just when do you cite papers in your work? Do you notice? Most students in my time didn't know. There's two reasons to cite a paper in your thesis text. One of them is if you make a bold statement. If you say something that people say, I don't believe you, you add a link to research as a kind of proof to what you're saying, right? The other thing is, if you think this reserves more information, if you want to link to, like, if you're interested in finding out more, then you add a link to the paper as well. Yeah. But the one where you make a bold statement that people can say, I don't believe you, or you can say, so what? You need a reference to do that. So if I say, most people nowadays, whatever follows, I need a reference to back up most people. I cannot just say this in an academic piece of text. You need to add some research that at least comes to that conclusion in some way. Maybe it's not a hard proof, but at least there are some indications to back up your statements. Yeah. If I was a supervisor, this was one of the most common mistakes of master thesis, and actually also researchers in general. When I'm a reviewer of a paper, I also do this quite a lot. This statement, either you have to tone it down to something more general, or you have to add a reference to research to back up. And you do this more than you think. Words like most people, or in many cases, this very common thing to say, but you have in an academic text, have to back that up with research, so with a citation. But that doesn't mean that you have to read a whole paper. If you just Google Scholar papers and you find one where you see like just one paragraph backing up your story, it's already enough to add it as a citation. If you're a professional researcher, of course, you look for a better reference than that. But in a master thesis, that can be enough to have some backup at least. Yeah. And that's also when you add references, and maybe references you did not read completely, still can be useful to back up your story. Okay. No more questions, no more things I can help you with? Then I want to thank you for your attention. I hope it was something useful, worthwhile your time. And I wish you all the best with all your thesis, articles, whatever that you write with. Thank you.